Chapter 9. Mr. Rochester's Past. Soon I discovered what Mr. Rochester meant when he said he had done wrong. One afternoon, while walking in the gardens of Thornfield, he told me the story of his love affair in Paris with a French dancer, Céline. Yes, Miss Eyre, I was young and foolish then. I was so in love with her that I rented a house and hired servants for her. I gave her a carriage and jewels. In fact, I threw away a fortune on her, just like any fool in love. One evening I visited her, but found she was out, so I waited on her balcony smoking a cigar. I heard her carriage arriving. Imagine my horror at seeing her step out, followed by a man. You're so young, you've never felt love or jealousy, have you, Miss Eyre? You're floating along a quiet river now. You don't see the water boiling at the foot of the great rocks. But one day, you'll come to a point in life's stream where the wild force of the waves may destroy you, where the noisy, rushing water may drown you. I'm calm enough now, calm enough to like living here at Thornfield. I like it because it's old and grey and dark, and yet I hate... He did not finish what he was saying, staring angrily up at the windows on the top floor of his house. It was a look of disgust, pain, and shame. I could not understand what he meant, and wanted to hear more about Céline, so I encouraged him to finish the story. What happened when she entered the house, sir? Oh, I'd forgotten Céline. By the way, it's strange my telling you all this, but I know my secret's safe with you. And I know, too, that it can't have an evil influence on you. Your mind's too strong for that. Yes, I listened to her conversation with her lover, an elegant young fool, and I knew I was no longer in love with her. So I walked into the room, told her our relationship was over, and challenged her lover to fight me. Next day I shot him in the arm during our fight, thought that was the end of the whole thing, and left France. But a few months before, Céline had had a baby girl, Adele, and she claimed that Adele was my child. She may be, although I doubt it. So when, a few years later, Céline abandoned Adele and ran away to Italy with a singer, I went to Paris and brought Adele back to grow up in England. I felt proud that Mr. Rochester had trusted me with the story of his past life. I thought a lot about his character, and although I was aware of his faults, I also saw his goodness and kindness to me. From now on, my happiest moments were spent with him. I could not have imagined a better companion. One night, I was woken by a slight noise. I felt sure someone was outside my bedroom door. As I hurried to lock it, I called, "Who's there?" There was a strange, inhuman sound. Then I heard a door shut upstairs on the top floor. Was that Grace Poole? I wondered, trembling. My curiosity made me open the door, and I found the corridor full of smoke. I saw it was coming from Mr. Rochester's door, which was slightly open. I completely forgot my fears and rushed into his room. He lay fast asleep, surrounded by flames and smoke. Even his sheets were on fire. "Wake up! Wake up!" I shouted desperately, throwing water over him to put out the flames. Not until the fire was almost out did he wake up, swearing to find himself so wet. "Is there a flood?" he cried. "No, sir," I answered, "but there's been a fire." "Jane Eyre, is it you and your magic?" he asked. "Have you put a spell on me again? Did you intend to drown me this time?" "Please get up, sir. Someone has plotted to kill you." And I explained what I had heard and how I'd put out the fire. He looked very serious and thought for a few seconds. "Shall I fetch Mrs. Fairfax, sir, or the servants?" I asked. "No, why bother them? Just stay here for a moment. I'm going up to the top floor. Don't call anyone. I'll be back soon." I waited, cold and tired, in his room for what seemed a very long time. Then I saw the light of his candle approaching through the darkness, and he appeared, looking pale and depressed. "Did you see anything when you opened your bedroom door?" he asked, glancing sharply at me. "No, sir. Only a candle on the floor." "But you heard a strange laugh, did you say?" "Yes, I've heard it before. Grace Poole laughs like that." "That's it. It must have been Grace Poole. You've guessed it. I shall consider what to do about it. But meanwhile, I'm glad you're the only person who knows anything about all this. Say nothing to anybody else, and now go back to your own room." "Good night then, sir," I said, moving towards the door. "What, are you leaving me already?" he said, seeming surprised, although he had just told me to go, "and so coldly?" "You said I should go, sir." "But not without saying goodbye. Not without a kind word or two. Why, you've saved my life. I hate being in debt to anyone, but with you it's different, Jane. I'm happy to owe you my life." His voice was trembling as he took both my hands in his. "I knew when I first saw you that you would do me good. I saw it in your eyes when I met you. I was right to like your smile and the magic in your face." There was energy in his voice and a strange light in his eyes. "I'm glad I happened to be awake," I said, "but I must go now. I'm cold." I knew I could not control my feelings much longer, and I needed time to think. But he still held on to my hands. Then I thought of a way of escaping. "I think I hear the servants moving, sir," I said. "Well, leave me," he said, and let me go. That night, or what was left of it, I could not sleep. My mind was full of confusing pictures and disturbed emotions. Chapter 10. The Mystery of Grace Poole. After this sleepless night, I was eager to see Mr. Rochester in the morning, but there was no sign of him. He'd obviously told the servants that he had accidentally set fire to his room by knocking over a lighted candle. As I passed his bedroom, I saw Grace Poole sitting inside, calmly mending the curtains. She certainly did not look desperate or mad enough to have tried to murder her master, but I decided to investigate. "Good morning, Grace," I said, entering the room. "Tell me what happened last night. The servants are talking about it." "Good morning, miss," she replied, looking up innocently. "Well, master was reading in bed and fell asleep, so he must have knocked the candle over. It set fire to the sheets, but luckily he managed to put the flames out with some water." "How strange," I said quietly. "Didn't anybody hear what was happening?" At this, she seemed to examine me carefully. "Mrs. Fairfax and you sleep nearest this room, miss. Mrs. Fairfax is a heavy sleeper, like most old people, and didn't hear anything. But you're young, miss. Perhaps you heard a noise." "I did," I whispered. "I'm sure I heard a strange laugh." She went on sewing calmly. "I don't think master would have laughed when he was in such danger," she said. "You must have been dreaming." "No, I wasn't dreaming," I replied sharply. "You didn't think of opening your door and looking out into the corridor?" she asked. I suddenly realized that if she suspected I knew of her guilt, she might attack me. "No, in fact I locked my door," I answered, "and I shall lock it every night from now on." "That's wise of you, miss. We might have burglars at Thornfield one day. You never know." I was amazed by her self-control, and could not understand why Mr. Rochester had not asked the police to arrest her, or at least dismissed her from his service. Why had he asked me to keep the attack a secret? How could such a proud gentleman be so much in the power of one of his servants that he could not even punish her for trying to kill him? Did she know a terrible secret from his past, which he had threatened to tell? Could he ever have been in love with her? No, I thought. He could never love anyone as plain and coarse as she is. But then I'm not beautiful either, and I sometimes think he loves me. Last night, his words, his look, his voice, and my cheeks were red as I thought of those precious moments. I was now even more impatient to see Mr. Rochester, but when I was having tea with Mrs. Fairfax in the afternoon, the first thing she said was, "It's fine weather for the master's journey." "Journey?" I cried. "I didn't know he'd gone anywhere." "Oh, yes. He went off just after breakfast to visit a family in a big house about 16 miles away. I know they've invited a lot of guests who'll be staying in the house. Mr. Rochester is always very popular with the ladies at these parties, so he may not come back for a week or so." "Who are the ladies at this house party?" "3 sisters. Very elegant young ladies, and their friends. Blanche and Mary Ingram. But Blanche is the most beautiful of all. I saw her when she came to a Christmas party at Thornfield 6 or 7 years ago. What does she look like? She was 18 then. A lovely girl, with beautiful skin, long curling black hair, and fine black eyes which shone as brightly as her jewels. She looked like a queen. All the gentlemen admired her, not only for her beauty, but also for her musical skills. When she and Mr. Rochester sang together, it was a delight to hear. Mr. Rochester? I didn't know he could sing. Oh, yes, he has a very fine voice. And then she played the piano later. The master said she played extremely well. And this beautiful lady isn't married yet? No, I don't think she or her sister has much money. But I'm surprised some rich gentleman hasn't fallen in love with her. Mr. Rochester, for example. He's rich, isn't he? Oh, yes. But you see, there's a considerable difference in age. He's nearly 40, and she's only 25. Well, marriages like that happen every day. Do you think... But I was interrupted by Adele, who came to join us, and the subject was changed. That night in my room, I was stern with myself. You, Jane Eyre, I accused my reflection in the mirror, you are the biggest fool in the world. How could you imagine that a gentleman of family and wealth would love you, a plain little governess? Just look at yourself. And I decided that next day I would draw an honest sketch of myself and then one of Blanche Ingram, painting the most lovely face I could imagine, according to Mrs. Fairfax's description. In the future, if ever my old feelings about Mr. Rochester began to return, I would only have to glance at the two pictures to see the great difference between us, and in this way, common sense would destroy my foolish dreams. Chapter 11. The Thornfield House Party. 2 disappointing weeks passed before we heard from Mr. Rochester again. During this time, I tried hard to forget my feeling for him. I reminded myself that he paid me to teach Adele, nothing more, and that no other relationship could exist between us. When his letter finally came, Mrs. Fairfax announced with great excitement that he was planning a house party at Thornfield. He was going to return in 3 days' time and had invited a large number of ladies and gentlemen to stay for several days. We all worked extremely hard in the next few days, cleaning all the rooms and preparing the food. The only person in the house who did not appear excited was Grace Poole, who stayed in her room upstairs, coming down once a day for food and drink. None of the servants seemed at all curious about her, but I once heard 2 of the maids talking, and I listened when I caught her name. "Does Grace Poole earn a lot, then?" asked one. "Yes, 5 times what you and I earn," answered the other. "But she's good at the work, I expect," said the first. "Oh, she understands what she has to do, that's true," answered the second. "And not everyone will want to do her job, not even for all that money." "Quite right. I wonder whether the master..." Suddenly they saw me and broke off their conversation. "Doesn't she know?" I heard one of them whisper. "No," said the other, and they were silent. So I realized there was a secret at Thornfield which nobody wanted to tell me. At last the great day came. Everything was ready for the master and his guests. Adele and I watched from an upstairs window as the carriages arrived. In front rode Mr. Rochester on his black horse, and with him rode a beautiful lady, her black curls streaming in the wind. Blanche Ingram, I thought. We listened to the laughing and talking in the hall as the guests were welcomed by their host and his housekeeper. From a dark corner of the stairs, we admired the ladies as they went up to their rooms, and then again as they descended to dinner in their elegant evening dresses. Adele was hoping Mr. Rochester would call her down to meet the guests, but in the end she was so tired with all the excitement that she and I both went to bed early. Next morning, after breakfast, the whole group went out for the day. Again I saw Mr. Rochester and Blanche Ingram riding together, I pointed this out to Mrs. Fairfax. You see, Mr. Rochester clearly prefers her to any of the other ladies.
Yes, he does seem to admire her,
admitted the housekeeper. And she admires him. Notice how she looks at him? But I haven't really seen her face yet. I'd like to.
You'll see her tonight, answered Mrs. Fairfax. I mentioned to the master that Adele wanted to be introduced to the ladies, and he asked you to bring her down to meet them this evening.
Well, I'll go if he wants me to, but I don't like meeting strangers. I'm not used to it.
I understand how you feel, said the old lady kindly, but the guests won't notice you much, and you can easily escape after a short time.
So Adele and I, dressed in our best, were waiting as the ladies came into the sitting room after dinner. I was most impressed by the beauty and elegance of all of them, but was especially fascinated by the Ingram family. Lady Ingram, although between 40 and 50, was still a fine woman. Her hair still looked black, by candlelight at least, and her teeth still seemed perfect. But she had fierce, proud eyes that reminded me of Aunt Reed's, and a hard, powerful voice. Her daughter Mary was rather quiet, but her other daughter Blanche was very different. As soon as the gentleman came into the room and coffee was served, she became the centre of attention. She played the piano excellently, she sang sweetly, she discussed intelligently, and all the time her flashing eyes, rich black curls, and fine figure attracted glances from every gentleman in the room. But I was looking for someone else. The last time I'd seen him, on the night of the fire, he had held my hands, told me I had saved his life, and looked at me as if he loved me. How close we had been then. But now, he entered the room without even looking at me, and took a seat with the ladies. I could not stop looking at him, rather like a thirsty man who knows the water is poisoned but cannot resist drinking. I'd never intended to love him. I had tried hard to destroy all feelings of love for him, but now that I saw him again, I could not stop myself loving him. I compared him to the other gentlemen present. They were all fine, handsome men, but they did not have his power, his character, his strength, or indeed his deep laugh or his gentle smile. I felt that he and I were the same sort of person, that there was something in my brain and heart, in my blood and bone, that connected me to him forever. And although I knew I must hide my feelings, must never allow myself to hope, I also knew that while there was breath in my body, I would always love him. Just then I heard Blanche Ingram say to him, "Mr. Rochester, you should have sent that little girl, Adele, is that her name, to school. But I see you have a governess for her. I saw a strange little person with her just now. Has she gone?" "Oh, no, there she is on the window seat. It's very foolish of you, you know. Governesses aren't worth their salary, are they, Mamma?"
"My dear, don't mention governesses to me," cried Lady Ingram, holding a white hand to her forehead. "How I have suffered with them."
One of the older ladies whispered to her, pointing in my direction.
"Oh, I don't care if she hears me," said Lady Ingram. "All governesses are useless. They never teach children anything."
"What fun we used to have playing tricks on them, didn't we, Mary?" laughed Blanche.
"But governesses are boring. Let's change the subject."
"Mr. Rochester, will you sing with me?"
"With pleasure," he answered, bowing, and the group moved towards the piano.
This was the moment for me to escape, but I'd only just left the sitting room and reached the hall when Mr. Rochester appeared through another door.
"Come back, you're leaving too early," he said to me.
"I'm tired, sir." He looked at me for a minute. "And a little depressed? Why?"
"Tell me."
"Nothing. It's nothing, sir. I'm not depressed."
"But I think you are. You're almost crying. But I haven't got time now to discover the reason. Well, tonight you may leave early, but I want to see you with my guests every evening. Good night, my—" He stopped, bit his lip, and turned quickly away. Those were cheerful, busy days at Thornfield. The old house had never seen so much life and activity. When it was fine, the host and his guests went riding, visited places of interest, and walked in the gardens, and when it was wet, they played games indoors. Mr. Rochester and Blanche Ingram were always together. Observing them closely, I felt very sure that he would soon marry this fine lady. But I did not feel jealous, because I knew he did not love her. She had made every effort to attract him, but he had not given her his heart. I saw her faults very clearly. She was intelligent, but had no opinions of her own. She was beautiful, but not good. She spoke of feelings, but she knew nothing of sympathy or pity. And above all, she had her mother's pride and hardness. Other eyes apart from mine saw all these faults. Mr. Rochester himself knew she was not perfect, but he was clearly preparing to marry her, perhaps because she was of good family, perhaps for some other reason. One day when Mr. Rochester was out alone on business, a stranger arrived in a carriage and introduced himself as an old friend of the master's. His name was Mason, and he had just returned from the West Indies, where Mr. Rochester had once lived. Chapter 12. The Gypsy Woman. No sooner had Mr. Mason joined the group of guests than a servant entered to announce the arrival of an old gypsy woman who was supposed to be a skilled fortune-teller. The ladies were very excited and decided to ask her to tell their fortunes. Miss Ingram, as usual, was first and spent 15 minutes alone with the old woman in the library. She came back looking cross. "It's just childish nonsense. How can you all believe in that sort of thing?" she said, picking up a book and pretending to read it. But as she frowned more and more and did not turn a page, I assumed that the gypsy's words were more important to her than she wanted us to think. Next, 3 young ladies went in together and came back full of praise for the gypsy's skill. "She's old and dirty and ugly," they cried, shocked. "But she knows everything about us, everything." While the gentlemen were calming them down, the servant entered the room again. "Excuse me, miss," he said to me. "The gypsy says there's another young single lady in the room. She refuses to leave the house until she's seen all the young ladies. It must be you." "Oh, I'll go," I said gladly. I was curious to see the gypsy. She was sitting in an armchair in the library, murmuring words over a little black book. Her large black hat covered most of her face, but when she lifted her head, I saw her dark eyes. "So, you want me to tell your fortune?" she asked. "Well, I must warn you, I don't believe in your skill." "I expected that. Why don't you tremble?" "I'm not cold." "Why don't you turn pale?" "I'm not ill." "Why don't you ask me to tell your fortune?" "I'm not a fool." The old woman laughed and started smoking a short black pipe. "I can prove that you're cold and ill and a fool," she said. "Listen, you're cold because you're alone. You're ill because you lack love. And you're a fool because love is near you and you won't take one step to reach it." "That's true of many people," I said, interested. "Yes, but especially true of you. I can see that happiness is waiting for you if you really want it. Tell me, in that room of fine people, isn't there one face you look at? One person you're interested in?" "I hardly know the ladies and gentlemen here," I answered. "Well, you surely know the master of the house. What do you think of his relationship with his guests, and with one particular guest?" asked the gypsy, smiling wickedly. "They're all very friendly with each other," I replied cautiously. The gypsy seemed to know a lot about Thornfield. "Friendly? I'd say more than that. In fact, I'd go so far as to mention the name of Blanche Ingram and the word marriage. They will obviously be an extremely happy couple, although I told Miss Ingram something about the Rochester property which made her look quite depressed. If a wealthier gentleman comes along, Mr. Rochester might lose his beautiful bride." But I came to hear about my future, not Mr. Rochester's.
It depends on whether you're going to stretch out your hand for happiness. Let me look at your face. Your eyes and your mouth show me that feelings are important to you. But your forehead shows me that common sense is your main guide in life. You will never do anything wrong or shameful. Well, I respect that. I don't want sacrifice or sorrow in my life. I want...
But that will do. I'd like to stay here looking at you forever, but I must stop acting now. Was I dreaming? What was happening? The old woman's voice had changed and become as familiar to me as my own. "Well, Jane, do you know me?" asked the familiar voice, and struggling with the old clothes, Mr. Rochester stepped out of his disguise. "Sir, you've been talking nonsense to make me talk nonsense. It's hardly fair." "Do you forgive me, Jane?" "I shall try to, sir, but you shouldn't have done it." "What are my guests doing, Jane?" "Discussing the gypsy, I imagine. Oh, and did you know that a stranger has arrived to see you?" "A stranger? I wasn't expecting anyone. Who can it be?" "His name's Mason, sir, and he comes from the West Indies." The smile froze on Mr. Rochester's lips, and his face went white. "Mason? The West Indies?" he repeated 3 times. "Do you feel ill, sir?" I asked, worried. "Jane, help me," he murmured, almost falling. I helped him to sit down and sat with him. He took my hand and rubbed it gently. "I wish I were on an island with you and nobody else, with no trouble or danger or terrible memories to make me suffer." "How can I help you, sir? I'd give my life to help you." "Jane, if I need help, I'll ask you, I promise. Get me a glass of wine now." I fetched one from the dining room and gave it to him. He looked less pale, but very stern. "Jane, if all those fine guests of mine came and spat at me, what would you do?" he asked. "Turn them out of the house, sir, if I could. But if they only looked at me coldly and whispered behind their hands about me, and then left me one by one, I'd stay with you, sir, to comfort you. And if the whole world disapproved of me, would you still stay with me? If you deserved my friendship, as I'm sure you do, I wouldn't care about other people's disapproval." "Thank you, Jane. Now go and ask Mr. Mason to come and see me." So I did, and leaving the 2 men in the library, went to bed. Much later I heard him showing Mr. Mason to his bedroom, and was glad that Mr. Rochester sounded so cheerful. Chapter 13. The Stranger is Attacked. I was woken by the full moon shining in on me, as I had forgotten to draw my curtains. Suddenly, a wild, terrible cry broke the silence, echoing throughout the house. My heart missed a beat. What could it mean? It came from the top floor. Then I heard the sounds of a desperate struggle just above my room. "Help! Help! Help! Won't anyone help me? Rochester! Rochester! For God's sake, come!" shouted a voice from upstairs. Bedroom doors were opened as the guests woke up. "What's happening? Fetch a candle. Is it a fire? Are there burglars? Where's Rochester? He isn't in his room." "Here I am," called the master of the house, descending with a candle from the top floor. "It's all right. Don't be afraid, ladies. A servant's had a bad dream, that's all, and started screaming. Nothing to worry about. Please go back to your rooms. You'll catch cold otherwise." And so he calmed his guests and persuaded them to return to their rooms. But I knew that the sounds I had heard could have nothing to do with a servant's dream. So I dressed and waited in my room in case I was needed. After about an hour, when Thornfield Hall was completely silent again, there was a cautious knock on my door. "Are you awake, Jane?" asked the voice I had been expecting. "Yes, sir, and dressed." "Good. I need you. Come and help me. Bring a clean cloth with you." We went quietly up to the top floor, where he unlocked one of the small black doors. "Do you feel faint at the sight of blood?" he asked. "I don't think so," I replied.
We entered a room with curtains hung on the walls. One of the curtains was tied back to reveal a secret door into another small room. From there came an angry growling sound, almost like a dog. "Wait here," said Mr. Rochester, and went into the secret room where a shout of laughter greeted him. Oh, so Grace Poole was there. He came out quickly and closed the secret door. Then he showed me why he needed me. In an armchair lay Mr. Mason, his clothes and his arm covered in blood. As we bent over him, he opened his eyes and groaned. "Am I going to die?" he murmured weakly. "No, man, don't be foolish. It's just a scratch," answered Mr. Rochester. "Now, Jane," turning to me, "I'll have to leave you in this room with Mason while I fetch the doctor. You must wipe away the blood with a damp cloth like this and help him to drink a little water. But on no account must you speak to him. Is that understood?" I nodded and nervously watched him leave the room. I could hear him turning the key in the lock. So here I was, in the middle of the night, locked in with a bleeding, dying man and a wild, murdering woman only the other side of a door. It seemed a long night, interrupted only by Mason's groans and by occasional animal-like noises from the secret room. I had plenty of time to wonder why these violent attacks happened. First the fire in Mr. Rochester's room, and now a physical attack on a stranger. And how was Mr. Mason involved? Why was he here on the top floor? I had heard his host showing him to a bedroom near mine on the second floor. And why was Mr. Rochester so frightened when Mr. Mason came to Thornfield? At last, Mr. Rochester arrived with a doctor, who cleaned and bandaged Mason's wounds. "Strange," remarked the doctor. "The skin on the shoulder has been torn by teeth, as well as a knife." "She bit me," murmured Mason, "when Rochester managed to get the knife from her." "Well, I warned you not to see her alone," said Rochester. "You should have waited till the morning. Then we could have seen her together. Don't worry, man. When you get back to the West Indies, you can forget her. Think of her as dead and buried. Now, Doctor, is Mason ready to be moved? I have a carriage waiting outside. You'll take him home with you to avoid gossip, and then in a few days he'll be fit enough to leave the country." Although it was now early morning, the house was still in total silence, and so there were no witnesses to see Mason being helped downstairs and put in the carriage. "Look after him, Doctor," said Rochester. "Goodbye, Dick. Edward, make sure she's taken care of. Make sure she's treated well." Mason could not continue, but burst into tears. "I'll do my best, Dick, as I always have done," replied Rochester, shutting the door of the carriage, which rolled away. "But I wish there was an end to it," he murmured to himself. As we were walking back through the garden to the house, he said to me, "Jane, you've had a strange night. You look pale. Were you afraid when I left you alone with Mason?" "Not of Mason, sir, but of Grace Poole in the secret room. But I'd locked her door. I would never leave you in danger." "Will she go on living here, sir?" I asked. "Oh, yes. Don't think about her." "But I'm sure your life is in danger while she's here." "Don't worry, I can take care of myself. I'm in more danger while Mason's in England. I live in constant fear of a disaster." "But Mr. Mason's weak. You have great influence with him." "Yes, he wouldn't knowingly hurt me, but by one careless word he could destroy, if not my life, at least my chance of happiness." "Sit down with me on this bench, Jane. I want to ask you something." The early sun warmed the bench and the birds were singing. "Now, Jane, suppose a boy in a foreign country makes a mistake. Not a crime, mind you. The results of this mistake have a terrible effect on his whole life. He comes home after years of suffering and meets someone who is fresh and good and pure. Now, can he ignore society? Can he forget the past and live the rest of his life with her in peace?" It was a difficult question to answer. In the end, I said, "You can't rely on a human being to cure you of evil and give you peace. You must ask God's help." "But I think I've found the cure. It's—" He paused. I held my breath,
I almost thought the birds would stop singing to hear the name he was going to say. "Yes," he said in quite a different, hard voice. "You've noticed my love for Miss Ingram, haven't you? Don't you think she'll cure me of my wickedness, Jane? Oh, I can hear some of the guests in the garden. Go into the house by the back door." As I went one way and he another, I heard him say cheerfully to the gentleman, "Mason's already left. I got up early to say goodbye to him." Chapter 14. Trouble at Gateshead. When I was a child at Gateshead, Bessie the nursemaid used to say that to dream of children was a sure sign of trouble to come. For a whole week now, I had dreamt of a small child every night, and perhaps Bessie was right, as a message came from Gateshead. It appeared that my cousin John Reed, who had spent and wasted all his money and some of his mother's, and been in debt or in prison most of his life, had killed himself a week before. And then Mrs. Reed, whose health had been badly affected by worrying about her son, had suddenly fallen ill when she heard of his death. Although she could hardly speak, she had recently managed to express a wish to see me, and so my cousins Eliza and Georgiana had sent their coachman Robert to bring me back to Gateshead. I felt I could not refuse to see my aunt, perhaps for the last time. So I went to ask Mr. Rochester's permission to leave Thornfield for a while. I found him talking to Miss Ingram, who looked at me in disgust when I interrupted their conversation. "Well, Jane, what is it?" he asked, when we had left the room full of guests and gone into the library. "Please, sir, I would like permission to visit my aunt, who is ill, for a week or two." "Your aunt? You told me you had no relations." "I have none who love me, sir. She's Mrs. Reed, my uncle's wife. Her son has died recently. I really can't neglect her now that she is dying." "What nonsense, Jane. Rushing off to visit an old lady who has never loved you. But I see you've decided to go. Where does she live and how long will you stay?" "She lives at Gateshead, sir, 100 miles away. I'll stay as short a time as I can." "Promise me only to stay a week." "I can't promise, sir. I might have to stay longer." "And you certainly can't travel 100 miles alone." "They've sent the coachman for me, sir. I'll leave tomorrow." Mr. Rochester thought for a while. "Well, you'll need some money. I haven't paid you any salary yet. How much have you in the world, Jane?" he asked, smiling. I showed him my tiny purse. He took it and laughed as he counted the few coins. Then he took out his wallet. "Here is £50, he said, offering me a note. "But you only owe me £15, sir," I cried. "On second thoughts, give me that back. If you had £50, perhaps you would stay away for 3 months. Here is £10. Is that enough?" "Now you owe me £5, sir," I pointed out. "You'll have to come back for it then," he said, laughing. "There's something else, sir. You've told me you're going to marry soon. In that case, Adele should go to boarding school." To get her out of my lovely bride's way? A very sensible suggestion. But what about you? "I must find another job somewhere. I'll advertise." "Don't you dare," he growled. "Promise me, Jane, not to look for another job. I'll take care of that." "I'll promise, sir, if you promise that Adele and I will be out of your house before your bride enters it." "Very well. And now we must say goodbye." "Goodbye, Mr. Rochester." I set out early the next morning and travelled all day. As I approached Gateshead Hall, I realised it was 9 years since I had left it. In that time I had made some friends, gained much self-confidence, and finally lost my hatred of the Reeds. I was delighted to see my old friend Bessie again. She had married Robert the coachman and was very busy with her 3 young children. The house itself had not changed at all, but my cousin certainly had. Eliza was now very tall and thin, with a rather sour face, dressed in very plain clothes, and with a cross hanging round her neck. Georgiana, on the other hand, was still pretty but very fat, and wore extremely fashionable clothes. They did not seem pleased to see me. In fact, they more or less ignored me, but I hardly noticed their rudeness.
I told the housekeeper that I would be staying for several days, and then went straight to my aunt's room. I remembered it well from my childhood. I had often been called there to be punished. Bending over her bed, I kissed her. "How are you, dear aunt?" I asked. I had sworn never to call her aunt again, but I did not regret breaking that promise to myself. I held her hand. "Are you Jane Eyre?" she asked. Her face, although deathly pale, was as stern as ever, and she removed her hand from mine. "That child was more trouble to me than anyone would believe. I was glad to send her to Lowood. And John, poor John, he needs so much money. Where can I get more money from? What will happen?" She seemed very confused and excited, so I left her to sleep. Her illness got worse in the next few days. I spent some time every day looking after her, and the rest of the time with my cousins, listening to their plans for the future. Eliza was planning to join a religious community after her mother's death, but Georgiana was hoping to stay in London with relations, to see the new fashions and go to all the parties. It was quite clear they had no real feeling for their mother and were almost looking forward to her death. One dark, stormy night, I visited the dying woman. She lay there asleep in her room, neglected by her daughters and servants. As I looked out of the window into the black emptiness, I wondered about the great mystery of death and thought of Helen Burns, who was so sure her spirit would go to heaven. Would my aunt's spirit go there too? "Who are you?" I heard the sick woman murmuring. "I wanted to see Jane Eyre. I must tell her something." "I am Jane Eyre, Aunt," I told her gently. "I know I'm very ill," she said weakly. "Before I die, I must confess what I've done wrong. First, I broke my promise to my husband about you. And second..." She broke off. "After all, perhaps I don't need to tell her," she said to herself. And then, "No, it's no good. I know I'm dying. I must tell her, and quickly. Jane Eyre, take the letter from the top drawer of my desk and read it." I did so. It said, "Madeira. Dear Mrs. Reed, please inform me of the address of my niece, Jane Eyre. As I am unmarried with no children and fairly wealthy, I would like her to come to Madeira to live with me and to inherit all my property when I die. John Eyre." "Why did I never hear of this?" I asked, amazed. "I hated you so much that I wrote back to him telling him you had died of typhus fever at Lowood. That was my revenge on you for causing me so much trouble," she cried angrily. "Dear Aunt," I said, "don't think about that any more. I was only a child. It's not surprising I was a nuisance." "You were always so angry and violent. Such a wicked child." "Not as wicked as you think. I would have loved you if you'd let me. Forget it all and kiss me now, Aunt." But it was too late for her to break the habit of dislike, and she turned away from me. Poor woman. She died soon afterwards, keeping her hatred of me alive in her heart, and no one at Gateshead cried for her. Chapter 15. The Future Mrs. Rochester. And so I set out on the long journey back to Thornfield. Mrs. Fairfax had written to me while I was at Gateshead, telling me that the guests had all gone, and Mr. Rochester had gone to London to buy a carriage for his wedding. It was clear that he would be getting married very soon. After a long day sitting in the coach, I decided to get out at Millcote, leave my luggage at the hotel, and walk across the fields to Thornfield. It was a warm June evening, and I felt glad to be going home. I had to remind myself sternly that Thornfield was not my permanent home, and that the person I was so looking forward to seeing was perhaps not even thinking of me. And then I saw him. He was sitting on the gate ahead of me, writing in a notebook. He noticed me at once. "Hello," he cried. I was trembling at the unexpected sight of him, and could not control my voice, so I approached in silence.
"So it's Jane Eyre," he continued. "Why didn't you send for a carriage? It's just like you to come on foot from Millcote. Now, what have you been doing for a whole month?" "I've been looking after my aunt, sir, who's just died." "You come from another world, Jane, from the world of the dead. I think you must be a spirit, and absent for a whole month. I'm sure you've quite forgotten me." Even though I knew I would soon lose him, he had such power to make me happy that I was in heaven listening to him. "Did Mrs. Fairfax tell you I've been to London?" he asked. "Oh, yes, sir, she did." "And I expect she told you why I went there?" "Well, you must see the carriage I've bought, Jane. It will suit Mrs. Rochester perfectly. I only wish I were more handsome, as she's so beautiful. Can't you put one of your spells on me to make me more attractive for her?" "That's beyond the power of magic, sir," I replied, while thinking, to someone who loves you, you are handsome enough. Mr. Rochester was sometimes able to read my thoughts, but this time he just smiled warmly at me and opened the gate. "Pass, friend," he said, "and welcome home." I could have just walked past him in silence, but something made me turn and say quickly, before I could stop myself, "Thank you, Mr. Rochester, for your great kindness. I'm glad to come back to you, and wherever you are is my home, my only home." I ran across the field and into the house before he had time to answer. 2 weeks passed after my return with no news of the wedding. There were no preparations at Thornfield, and no visits to the Ingram family, who lived only a few miles away. I almost began to hope. It was the middle of summer, and every day the sun shone on the green fields, the white baked roads, and the cool dark woods. One evening, after Adele had gone to sleep, I went into the garden. I discovered a quiet place where I thought nobody would find me, but then I noticed Mr. Rochester had come into the garden too. Hoping to escape back to the house, I crept quietly behind him while he was bending over to admire an insect, but... "Jane," he said suddenly, "come and look at this beautiful insect." "Oh, now he's flown away. No, don't go back to the house, Jane, on such a lovely night. Come and walk with me." I could not find a reason for leaving him, so I accompanied him in silence. "Jane," he began, "you like Thornfield, don't you? And you even like little Adele and old Mrs. Fairfax, don't you?" "I do, sir. I really don't want to leave them." "What a pity," he sighed. "That's what happens in life. No sooner have you got used to a place than you have to move on." "Do I have to move on, sir? Leave Thornfield?" "I'm afraid you must, Jane." "Then you are going to be married, sir?" "Exactly, Jane. And as you have pointed out, when I take the lovely Miss Ingram as my bride, you and Adele must leave the house, so I'm looking for a new job for you." "I'm sorry to cause you trouble," I said miserably. "No trouble at all. In fact, I've already heard of a very good job which would be just right for you, teaching the 5 daughters of an Irish family. You'll like Ireland, I think. They're such friendly people," he said cheerfully. "It's such a long way away, sir." I was fighting to keep my tears back. There was an icy coldness in my heart. "Away from what, Jane?" "From England and from Thornfield and... well, from you, sir." I could not stop myself and burst into tears immediately. "It certainly is very far away," he said calmly. "Let's sit on this bench, Jane, like old friends saying goodbye. You know, I sometimes feel as if you and I were connected by a string tying our 2 hearts together. And if you went to Ireland, I think that string might break and I might bleed to death." I wish I'd never been born," I cried. "I wish I'd never come to Thornfield." No longer able to control my feelings, I poured out what was in my heart. "I can't bear to leave, because here I've been treated kindly, and because I've met you, Mr. Rochester, and I can't bear never to see you again. Now I have to leave. I feel as if I'm dying." "Why do you have to leave?" he asked innocently. Why? I repeated, amazed. Because you're marrying Miss Ingram. She's your bride. My bride? I have no bride, he answered. But I will have one, and you must stay. I can't stay, I cried furiously. Do you think I can watch another woman become your bride? Do you think I'm a machine without feelings? Do you think, because I'm small and poor and plain, that I have no soul and no heart? Well, you're wrong. I have as much soul and heart as you. It is my spirit that speaks to your spirit. We are equal in the sight of God. We are, repeated Mr. Rochester, taking me in his arms and kissing me. Don't struggle, Jane, like a wild, restless bird. Let me go, Mr. Rochester. I am no bird, but a free human being. And I managed to break away. Yes, Jane, you are free to decide. I ask you to walk through life with me, to be my constant companion. You're laughing at me. You've already chosen your companion for life. I was crying quietly, while Mr. Rochester looked gently and seriously at me. Jane, he said, I ask you to be my wife. You are my equal, Jane. Will you marry me? Don't you believe me? Not at all, I answered. I'll convince you. Listen, I don't love Miss Ingram and she doesn't love me. She only liked me for my wealth. And when I, disguised as the gypsy woman, told her that I had only a little money, she and her mother lost interest in me. You strange, magical spirit, I love you. You small and poor and plain. I ask you to marry me. You want to marry me? I cried, almost beginning to believe him. But I have no friends, no money, no family. I don't care, Jane. Say yes quickly. It's cruel to make me suffer like this. Give me my name. Say, Edward, I'll marry you, he cried, his face very pale in the moonlight. Are you serious? Do you really love me? Do you honestly want me to be your wife? I asked. I swear it. Then, Edward, I will marry you. My little wife. He held me in his arms for a long time, kissing me gently. Once he murmured, No family. That's good. No family to interfere. And then, I don't care what people think. And again. Are you happy, Jane? I thought of nothing except the great happiness of being with him forever. But while we were talking, the weather had changed. A strong wind was now blowing, and there was a loud crack of thunder. Suddenly rain poured down, and although we hurried back to the house, we were quite wet when we arrived in the hall. We did not notice Mrs. Fairfax standing in the shadows. Good night, my darling, he said, kissing me repeatedly. As I ran upstairs, I caught sight of the old lady's shocked face. Tomorrow I'll explain to her, I thought. Just then I was too happy to think about anything except our bright future. Outside, the storm continued furiously all night, and in the morning we discovered that the great tree at the bottom of the garden, which had stood for hundreds of years, had been hit by lightning and torn in half.